A tenant scooped more than £100,000 profit after buying their council house, and selling it on just 178 days later. Another house sold by Kirklees Council was sold on after just 7 days at a profit of almost £5,000, it has been revealed. The homes were two of hundreds that were flipped, bought from Kirklees Council and then quickly sold on to the private sector by council house tenants over the past few decades. New data about the rapid resale of council properties sold under the Right to Buy scheme has revealed, one house was sold by Kirklees to a tenant in 2003 for £52,000 only for them to resell it a week later for £56,950. In January of the same year, another tenant bought their home for £125,000 and sold it on 178 days later in July for £248,000, landing the owner with an incredible £691 per day. A year earlier, a home bought from the council increased £31,000 in value in just 82 days. A house sold by Kirklees for only £18,000 in December 2004 sold for £116,000 in November 2007, and £98,000 profit for the tenant. A £94,000 profit was made on a council house in just 3 years when it sold 2006. The costs associated with the sales have not been revealed. Tenants who sold within 5 years were technically liable to repay a portion of their discount to their council, but it is not clear if this occurred. The discount refund could be far less than the profit made by flipping the home. The lucky tenants all had the good fortune to be selling when house prices were surging during the first and second terms of Tony Blair's new Labour government. Just a few years later, house price growth had begun to slow again. One unlucky tenant suffered a £70,000 loss when they sold their council house in 2009, bought just 2.5 years before. Roughly speaking, if a home is worth £100,000, it could be sold by Kirklees to its tenant for anything between £30,000 to a maximum of £75,000. Kirklees Council only gets to keep 30% of that, potentially just £9,000. Building a new council house to replace it will likely cost at least 5 times that. There are strict rules on the council's use of borrowing which prevent it from taking out loans to finance social housing. Almost 200 council houses are being sold in Kirklees every year, while the council is only managing to build a handful. The Local Government Association has warned that without a fundamental re-examination of Right to Buy, the scheme will have to end when there are no more homes to sell. Last year, the Ministry of Housing launched a review that will consider letting councils keep 100% of the cash from sales. The recently released database shows a dozen Kirklees Council tenants offloaded the homes they had bought within a year. Overall, about 40 homes bought under the Right to Buy legislation from Kirklees were sold on to the private sector within 3 years, most leaving the owners with tens of thousands of profit. The cases in Kirklees are by no means unique. The most extreme examples uncovered by an investigation by the BBC include 4 examples of council homes being sold on after just 1 day, one in South London for a £36,000 profit. Another Right to Buy purchaser in North Lincolnshire made a stunning £45,100 selling their home just 6 days after they bought it for just £3,150. Over the past 20 years, there are some 626 cases of council tenants buying their house and then selling it to the private sector. Some will have purchased from the council with discounts on the market value of between 50% and 70%. Paul Dossett, head of local government at financial services firm Grant Thornton UK LLP, said, "The Right to Buy scheme has been a disaster for the UK taxpayer. Not only have they ended up getting less value for taxpayer-funded assets, the subsequent shortage of social housing has resulted in a hike in rent prices which, when the tenant is a recipient of housing benefit, is also funded by the taxpayer." Councils have been forced to buy back homes at a significantly inflated price to try and meet demand, a financial disaster for councils who are already struggling to remain financially sustainable. Margaret Thatcher, the architect of Right to Buy, which launched in 1980 and was revived in 2010 by David Cameron. When you consider the amount of people currently struggling to get on the housing ladder, the stretched finances of many councils due to increasing demand across numerous services and the rising cost of homelessness, we need to ensure that housing schemes are effective and beneficial for both councils and their communities. For the Right to Buy scheme to be sustainable, councils need to be able to replace every home being sold. The removal of the housing revenue borrowing cap was a step in the right direction and will allow councils to borrow more to build and boost their supply of new homes. The Right to Buy scheme has resulted in a huge shortage of social housing, with a staggering number of homes being sold off but not replaced. Analysis from the Local Government Association shows that just one new home is built for every 5 sold. It has not resulted in mixed-tenure communities, as many right-to-buy properties are owned by private landlords who can choose to rent out their property to those that need it. The Right to Buy scheme, along with population and single-person household growth, has contributed to the nationwide housing shortage facing the UK. This is particularly true for the social housing sector, where the shortage of homes has resulted in an increase in rent prices. The scheme, Right to Buy and Right to Acquire, is unsustainable and has proven unsuccessful for both councils and the UK taxpayer. We echo the LGA's call for the Right to Buy scheme to be radically reformed, with a major scaling up of capital receipt retention by councils. Council housing at Roundway, Honley, Image, Huddersfield. Examiner, Henry Pryor, housing market commentator, said, "Clearly the policy has worked well for a lot of people, but the decimation of the nation's social housing stock leaves huge question marks. I expect people will be surprised and angry. A lot will miss the few benefits of Right to Buy, many will dismiss them, but the majority will, I'm sure, feel that what this tells us is what we suspected all along, that some people have got ahead with direct government subsidy and that far too many of them have simply profited from a scheme that had much bigger social ambitions when it was reinvigorated, first by Margaret Thatcher and subsequently by the coalition government under David Cameron. The one-for-one replacement pledge seems to have been missed by a country mile, and central government swiping the bulk of the sale receipts has left local authorities struggling to manage the very real pressures from residents in need of social housing or of developing a feasible plan to solve the problem in the longer term. The Chartered Institute of Housing said it was now time to stop Right to Buy in England. It has already been stopped in Scotland and Wales. A spokesperson said, "We think the time is right to suspend it to stem the loss of homes for social rent, which are often the only genuinely affordable option for people on lower incomes. Not only are we failing to build enough homes for social rent, Right to Buy means we are losing them at a time when millions of people need genuinely affordable housing more than ever. Our analysis shows that we have lost more than 165,000 homes for social rent in just 6 years, between 2012 and 2018, and that figure will reach 199,000 if we don't take action now." Minister of State for Housing, in England and Wales, Kit Malthouse MP, said, "Under Right to Buy, the government has helped nearly 2 million people achieve their dream of home ownership, and we are working hard to make sure that everyone in the country who wants it has a shot at getting on the housing ladder. Tenants who use Right to Buy must repay some of their discount back to their council if they sell the property within the first 5 years, and must offer their local authority the opportunity to buy it back. Children Create Bring Back Our Park campaign group, and win."